Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be joining us from. Welcome to SalesTV, the place for salespeople to network with their peers. I am Alex Abbott, otherwise known as the Bearded Sales Guy, and this is Sales Transformation episode 4. And we have a wonderful guest with us today who's going to introduce himself in just one moment. But before he does, the topic today is about how do you create the culture for transformative change that sticks? Yeah. Who better to talk to us about that than Mr. Rainer Stern? Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and privilege to be here. And I am, just a few words about myself. I am working for SAP. I'm a global vice president for transformation and sales enablement. And I have seen, talking about culture, I have seen around about 66 countries in my life, not only for pleasure, also in business. And having spoken to salespeople all around the world and sales leaders, I realized, after all, sales is not so different across countries, market units, or even cultures. So it will be a lot of fun talking to you, hearing your questions, and getting into this conversation.
Yeah. And I feel a little bit left out because I'm a little bit starstruck here with two famous authors.
You are, no, you're wonderful. We couldn't have SalesTV without you, so it's very good to have you here. But I have to echo, Rainer is just an amazing leader, and he's been a good friend as well. And yes, we have both been co-authors on a new book. And I don't know, maybe you can pop that up and just show them real quickly, and we'll remind you at the end of it. But Rainer and I are kind of excited about this. A brand new book called Transformational Sales Leadership, Sales Leader Perspectives. So Rainer and I each wrote a chapter, and we had 10 other colleagues from around the world in sales leadership, coaching, and different types of businesses who contributed. And we had some great help with our editors, Dr. Christine Eastman, Dr. Phil McGowan, and Dr. Beth Rogers as well, too. Phenomenal. So we can't wait to tell you a little bit more about that. Yeah. But Rainer, it's so good to have you here today. You're such a respected leader. You've been with SAP how long now?
It's my 30th year.
30 years.
Wow.
You're looking good. I don't know what you're doing, but you're looking great. 30 years. So you've got, a great wealth of knowledge and experience leading sales enablement and leading different functions. As we talk about this subject here today, it's so important because you look at 2023 and there was a big elephant in the room called quiet quitting. And you're looking at salespeople specifically, as we do here in SalesTV, and you're looking at it was a cost of $9 trillion to the global economy of what is quiet quitting. And quiet quitting is the disengagement. It is not the actual leaving, but it's the support levels, the mental well-being, the mental health, the support that we're giving people to actually be in sales and to continue to be their best. And people just disengage. And that leads us into our discussion today as we all work to strive to professionalize the sales career pathway, and we lead sales transformation together. How do we support this? 9 trillion is massive. And I think that leads us into our first question that I'm just dying to hear your thoughts on. What do we do to support sales teams' engagement? And I would love to hear your perspectives.
Mm-hmm. And this is a brilliant question, and it's a big topic. And I usually structure my answers around 3 things. Because I'm a salesperson, I can only count to 3. I'm not that good at numbers. So the first thing is, it always starts with getting the person on board. Okay. So bringing the people into the organization and providing a unique experience is absolutely key. That includes things like creating a network, introducing to the right people. Of course, some knowledge transfer as well, but it's more your culture and how do you want to engage with companies, with customers, with other people. So the first one is your own experience in the very beginning. Then secondly, obviously, throughout your work life, you are dealing with your managers. So what is a company doing with managers for their people? At the end of the day, we're all dealing with human beings. So how do you want to be treated as an employee, as a salesperson, as a leader, or as a manager? What's the difference between management and leadership? How can you influence that? That's really exciting. So throughout your your life. And fun fact, in 30 years at SAP, I had 30 different managers. And some of them were great leaders, and some of them I only had for a couple of months as an interim. So I learned something every time. So I'm really good at onboarding new managers. And then the third element is ongoing. How do you actually continue developing yourself? Life has a lot to do with lifelong learning, especially in our industry where we're dealing with high-tech companies, but we are also dealing with companies in 25 other different industries. You can never learn enough. So what is it that can motivate you to grow and grow and grow and maybe stay in the same company without necessarily leaving? In almost 30 years, I had different jobs, and it was never the same job for 6 months. And that's the kind of excitement that once you have it and once someone provides it to you, you can live that excitement in front of your customers. And at the end of the day, if you're not relevant for your customer, don't waste their time.
Yeah, that's true.
So I can't help but think of this question as I listen to you talk, Rainer. We've all worked in large companies where there's, hundreds, if not thousands of salespeople. We've all worked on transformation projects in one form or another, but what, in terms of the responsibility for change, where do you feel that should sit? Who should be responsible?
Interesting.
In an organization?
Yeah.
So there are a couple of aspects. One, the organizational aspect, you cannot put it high enough. So change and transformation need to be led from the top. But it doesn't end on level 1, level 2, level 3. Everyone needs to embrace some kind of thinking about change. And it's okay if you are not the person who can deal with change. It's fine. There may be some jobs, there may be some skills required that require, behavior in your area where you're not dealing with change. You need to maintain the status quo in certain areas. And that's perfectly fine. Not everyone needs to be a transformation agent. But at the end of the day, it's all around getting an understanding of every single person and showing that you're serious and showing that you care for the person and why it's important. So bringing people behind your idea, behind your vision is the major difference between a manager and a true leader. And especially in transformation where it's not easy and it's changing all the time. You need to provide an environment, or we can say culture, but something where you get the feeling across that you mean it's serious and it's not just another project or an initiative that will not be around for the next year or something.
Yeah. I'd love to get your perspective as well.
Well, I was gonna say, this almost goes back to our last episode where we were talking a little bit more about transformational leadership, transactional leadership, the different types of styles of leadership. And where does it sit? And there has to be flexology into, sometimes you have to be directional, right? And intentful in the directions that you give. But how do you get out of that and then transition into a transformation where you're supporting, developing, where it's about bringing those people up versus all shining the light on yourself? And, Rainer's so right. It has to be empowered from the top, because if it's not, then it won't be successful. And I look at so many different organizations and people that I speak with that how, leaders are looking for a culture change, looking for a transformation to occur, but they set their sights so large, they don't focus on the minute aspects of what needs to change. And then how are you going to support them through that? They often miss that. And what Rainer's saying absolutely makes sense. So there's another part that Rainer talked about, and I want to touch on. A key word you hit, Rainer, was the manager, the sales manager. And I think that this role is often overlooked between organizations and entities. You look at the responsibilities that sales managers have, because you'll have leadership with the tone and the direction coming down. And you have sales support, which is typically bottom-led, and you have the person in the middle that gets everything onto them. Tell me how you support your sales managers in their development, in their ongoing engagement and support.
First, it took quite some time to understand the importance of that topic, to really, truly understand. and to make the decision, a conscious decision, that every leader in sales, and I'm talking about sales for a moment, every leader needs to be hit or needs to be included by a certain program. So we started to create programs to cover on the person of the manager, the leader, him or herself, then focus on what can you do with your team members, and then focus on how do you interact with customers and how do you make things happen. And that's part, as you said, the execution. It's not only about vision and great philosophies. No, it's also about the execution. Certain things must be done. End of story. So we started then to build a sales leadership academy in California, mainly because we have our labs over there, and we have innovation centers, we have Stanford University, we have our startup organizations right over there, and we wanted to provide a unique experience for people to go there for a full week, coming from all over this planet, and we covered all sales managers at SAP. Now, it's very important to not just have this as a one-time event, but to continuously follow up, to nurture with people. And the one thing that I want to share is very important, to also provide a community of sales managers who feel very, very alone. The lone wolf, the lone person in the desert. They actually came up with different descriptions, but at the end of the day, they all feel lonely. Showing them, hey, you're not alone. You have similar problems all over the world, and some of you might have answers and solutions to them. That created another new experience and some excitement, because all of a sudden they were no longer alone, but they could help each other out, and I could really see it. They started some friendships and had an impact in private lives as well.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're driving transformation from the top down. We were talking about this a little bit before we went on air, and for someone that's been a salesperson with strong leadership, strong vision, strong direction, strong coaching, also then flipping that to being a sales leader and appreciating the importance of driving change from that leadership level. How do you quantify success when it comes to transformation, Rainer?
This is one of my favorite topics, because we're all about reporting and about numbers and about statistics and the intelligent enterprise, but I do not want to lecture here on SAP stuff. It's actually something very tangible. When we think about transformation programs which we ran for sales, and I can talk about the non-sales area in a moment, but in sales, obviously you have sales KPIs, you have opportunities, pipelines, revenue, you have win-backs, you have competitive wins, you have all these kind of KPIs, all familiar to you. So we said, let's use these KPIs, because if it's not relevant for salespeople, we should not waste their time. Again, my favorite mantra. So we then measured all the numbers of all the sales KPIs of people attending versus people not attending, people attending prior and afterwards, so we could do all the slicing, dicing of the data. But then, in the end, we had just another report and statistical numbers. So then we applied a very nice ROI methodology of fillets and fillets. And that's the isolated effect of quantifying the results of training, and only the result of training. One of 255 different influencing factors in closing a deal. Training may be one of them, maybe. So please tell us, what was the isolated effect of this particular training? Did it help you to generate €1, £1, $1 or whatever currency you might have? Did it help you to close anything, or to increase, or to cross-sell, upsell? And to our surprise, the results were absolutely phenomenal. We never asked the question, but when we did, we got amazing results. And that then led our leaders and our executives think about training measures and transformation programs in a completely different way. It's no longer something that you must do if you still have the time. It is something that they proactively asked us to do every year in, year out, and to continue and to upgrade and to provide new versions. And then, if I may brag a little bit about my team, that then led to results like, okay, we can prove that we can win gold awards like Stevie or Brandon Hall or ATT or, all these external awards out there that demonstrate the real recognition that you can make for your company, in your company, but also with customers. And we applied this model also to other non-sales related training programs. So using a different set of measures, but at the end of the day, it's a very salesy thing to do, to ask your customer.
Yeah. Now I've heard the likes of I think Andrew Huff and others actually talk about the difference between training and enablement, and training being this kind of transactional, thing that happens in time, and then enablement is more of an ongoing thing. And again, as I listen to you talk, Rainer, about the quantifying the success of training, and I think you're saying enablement, how much of the effort goes into looking at what you can measure in almost real time, so that you can then hold the salespeople accountable, but also provide them with relevant coaching before you get to the end of the program, In
real time,
Actually, these are a couple of things in one set of questions. First, we need to adjust our reporting as we go, because there are skills required in a few months' time that we couldn't foresee today. Okay, so we have to update and upgrade our system as we go, and we do, and we provide new versions of programs or new programs as such. So that's one aspect. And another aspect is that you mentioned coaching. It is extremely important to have different versions of coaching, spot coaching that are deal related or numbers related, and I would say more general coaching on how do you progress with strategic customers, something like that. So we have different attempts, different actually programs on some coaching like that. Very important. And the third aspect, and that's maybe the glue of bringing everything together, is that whatever we are doing, it's not just knowledge transfer. Whatever we are doing is something that changes behavior in the desired direction. Talking about the strategy, the vision, the philosophy, talking about the transformation that should start at the top and should be led throughout the organization on every level. To really bring this to life and to show that you really care and that you really mean it serious. That's the glue of bringing everything together. So it's not static, and it's very serious. And if you change behavior of people, you eventually change the business impact that you derive, and you change the impact on the customer side.
What time period? Because changing behavior is ultimately what we're talking about when we talk about sales transformation. What time period? And this might be how long is a piece of string, but what time period would you say it takes to change behavior? Let's say, a cohort of 20 versus a very large team of 1,000. I know that's not very large for you two, but
it is.
Yeah.
Everything between 1 day and 3 years.
Okay.
I was going to say, yeah, it's very unique, isn't it? Each person is individual.
Yes, and it depends on the topic, obviously. I mean, if you've seen a really bad presentation and we all have to say, oh, that mistake I will never do again, and you start immediately.
Yeah.
Or you take a new technology, or you take something that you can apply immediately because you're so excited, so yet you can excite someone else. So that's relatively easy. When we talk about transformational programs, for instance, how different departments shall work together to serve customers in a different way, that's a multi-year transformation. And that cannot be done in a couple of months or anything like that. But then there are certain topics, certain methods or frameworks that you can apply in your daily life, in your daily work life, that you may use and adopt and apply over the course of the next couple of weeks or months. Now, again, it's very important to not forget and to continuously apply and adopt and adjust and have this process so that it doesn't get forgotten. Oh yeah, we had this initiative in the beginning of the year, but we no longer do that. We do something different. So you need to have clarity on the scope and the focus. And that is another leadership skill, to provide clarity and context. It is so extremely important to tell people and explain the context of why something is important right now and why something is top priority. And sometimes these topics are not very very nice or very people don't like to adopt it. However, if you provide the context and you say, hey, in the long run, something else will happen, and I provide you a vision with that, then you have a chance. And that takes sometimes months, sometimes take years, but you can do a lot when you provide the context and bring people behind you in a way that they feel that you care. And now here's the German talking about feelings. Yeah?
I love that.
We're talking about feelings all of a sudden. And that's very important because we're dealing with human people. That's a sales topic. Yeah? You're dealing with human beings. I've never signed a contract with Siemens as a company. I signed a contract with someone signing a piece of paper, and it was a person, it was a human being, with all the complexities behind the politics and so on and so forth. But it's the human aspect that sometimes gets forgotten. And that is so important in transformation.
I could not be more proud. I don't know if you see, but my face is flustered because here you have a senior leader at SAP, and he's from Germany, and he's giving us permission to talk about feelings of salespeople. That's music to my ears. You know, Rainer, you are such a transformational leader, and the evidence is clear in everything you do and how you represent your people. And I love the discussion of where it's going. You know, we talked a little bit about tick box exercises and training programs and how we put them through, but how do we support that? And I want to connect that with embedment, you know, training / new behavioral embedded. How do you tie that with continued professional development?
So one aspect that is very important for me is, and we are in an industry of permanent innovation. One aspect is that whatever we do, we cannot or we must not say, this is what you need to do right now. This is it. We need to innovate. We need to encourage people to try out different things, different ways, and encourage them at the same time to make mistakes. And it's perfectly fine to make mistakes and to learn along the way. Again, this is part of setting the context. Again, I always come back to that leadership skill. If you provide that kind of context, hey, this is where we are today, and we have changed programs and behavioral change trainings overnight because we realized, oh, we have to do something different. That is okay. Yeah? And you need to demonstrate that, not just talk about, but demonstrate, hey, you know, here's a course correction and here's why. Yeah? And by the way, that's another aspect. We listened to you and we take it serious, and that's why we are changing the course. It sounds very easy, but it's not sometimes. And really keeping to this culture of it's okay to fail. You as a manager and as a leader, you make yourself vulnerable if you stand in front of people and say, hey, I made a mistake.
Well, and you build trust instantly, because then people can empathize with you and they say, wait a minute, if this leader is willing to show me who they are and be vulnerable, then who am I? It gives me permission to bring my real self to work each day.
Yes, and that leads to my favorite topic of trust. Yeah, I mean, how do you build trust? How do you keep trust? Trust can be gone in a split second. Yeah? You just use the wrong word in the wrong situation and it's gone forever. So what is leading to trust? And I listened to, as part of my research, I did an interview with a native, a digital native, and he said, you know, Right, I'm a digital native and I know everything, and or at least I know how to get to any answer to any question, to any problem. I just want you to trust me up front. And I said, are you crazy? Trust you up front? Why? You haven't done anything, you haven't accomplished anything.
Exactly.
But then I thought again, and I realized that, hey, maybe I just extend trust up front and see how this person will react to that. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it did not. But it was always a good start in a longer conversation and in a serious personal development conversation, because I said, hey, you did not earn my trust. So maybe we learn from this experience. Or I say, hey, you completely overwhelmed me with what you provided. I never thought that you would be able to do that, which is a great personal development. And that is something that as a leader you can do if you care for people.
Yeah, it's so important to have that level of trust internally before you can then effectively build trust externally with your customers, your buyers.
Absolutely. And you know what I'm hearing here with Rainer? You know, here is an established 30-year veteran, a senior leader in a global organization. He's not talking about tips and tricks to manipulate sales. He's not talking about overcoming objections. He's not talking about forceful sales scripts and tactics. He's talking about real humanization of leadership and investing in people, developing people. And that is, honestly, I have to say, so rare to hear. So again, I praise you, Rainer, for this discussion and for your vulnerability in sharing this, because it's got to be difficult as well, too. We've all met those challengers and leaders who come and say, sales training, yeah, that's something, that's the first thing to go. And it usually is, which is sad. But I'm so proud to see that you and SAP have obviously kept this going and really truly believe in it for you and your people. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You have the awards to show for it.
He does. And I'm learning too. I wrote that down. I just made some notes. Phillips and Phillips as well. I love that portion of how do we go back and, you know, quantify and validify training, you know, and the output of it and what's the real world. So we'll have to put that in the comments as well. And maybe we'll get some steer from you, Rainer, on how we can share that for our listeners. That's really good feedback.
Indeed. So I have another question. If we take a couple of steps back. So, you know, I'm hearing the importance of having transformational leadership, the importance of developing trust, you know, psychological safety, and it's okay to fail. Measurement is incredibly important, not only to hold people accountable for their actions and the behaviors on a day-to-day basis, but also to measure the success of the program overall. For those leaders listening to this conversation, what, you know, when we think about that transformational leadership and the let's say the project in hand, and you know, you've got leadership that is now enabled and they're set about trying to drive transformation. Is there a magic ratio between leaders and field sales reps that should be considered for a large transformation that it does include behavioral change? I mean, you know, because, you know, I've worked in a large organization. I think the ratio was, you know, manager to sales team was, you know, 1 to 6. And, you know, hierarchy and the number of layers was an important element. But in order to have a successful or drive a successful transformation, is there a ratio between expert, you know, leading, considered a leader in driving the transformation, and the number of reps?
I'm struggling a little bit because in our organization, yeah, of course we have, you know, 8 salespeople reporting to 1 manager, you know, something like that. Yeah. But that's not really the important point I see. The important point that I see is how is the customer being served by my company? And that is, of course, a salesperson, but there may be a pre-sales function, there may be an industry expert, there may be a value advisor, there may be a services person, there may be so many different other roles that are required to provide a full picture to the customer and to really provide the experience they need throughout the buying cycle. So I'm struggling a little bit to come up with a ratio, because it obviously depends on the number of roles that you have, the complexity of the services, products, the scope of the current deal with the company. So I don't think there is a magic formula, but the magic formula in our case is we are now redefining the way we want to serve customers, and we want to bring many people together to work together for the customers in a way that the customer doesn't see the complexity, and in a way that the customer feels, wow, this is a unique experience, better than ever before.
Nice.
So that has some challenges internally, obviously, and some behavioral change towards the customer. And we have so many different roles. I'm not here to share the number of different roles that we have, because it might get a little bit, it might derail the conversation here. But the most important thing is not the organizational setup. It's how we have an organizational setup to serve the customer. How's the customer being served? And that is something to invest time on and to ask customers on a regular basis, so that we can adjust the model as we go. And also, you cannot do it at once. In a larger company with tens of thousands of people addressing customers, you cannot just say, all right, as of 1st of next month, we will all do it differently. Will not work. So you have to choose your pilot countries or the market units or the areas, the industries. God knows what your territory planning is. But it's very important to start small and learn quickly, and then roll out as fast as you can, in a very informed way.
Yeah. And I think if I could add on to that too, I absolutely agree with what Rainer's saying. Alex, it can start with one. It can be as simple as it starts with one person. One person within any size organization. If you adopt the conversation of what Rainer's been saying today about the values, if you adopt the behaviors, if you adopt the leadership style of being vulnerable, letting people in, if you adopt that people need to be developed, if you adopt that we need to support the journey of our employees because it focuses on the end results of our customer and what our customer wants and needs, that one person can be uniquely powerful to transform an organization. When you talk about transformation, I look at, from my own experiences, or even from Rainer as well too. And, Rainer's one person, but he is one truly empowered person within a massive organization. And it sometimes can take just one. So Rainer told us as well in the beginning that, the leadership, it has to start from the top down. But as I remember in my doctorate, trying to research who can practice transformational leadership, there's a lot of literature out there that will say it is like the CFO, the CEO, senior vice presidents, etc. But actually, that's not true. Any one person who has that capability or that mentality within can transform an organization. And I think Rainer's living proof of that.
And there is not one model. I was once invited to a startup company in southern Germany, beautiful area in the Black Forest. And I looked at an image on the wall and I said, what is this? And the CEO of the very, very small startup organization said, this is our org chart. And I said, well, yeah, but you're at the bottom and 9 people are above you. What kind of org chart is that? And he said, well, I'm not the important person here. They are driving. I'm only orchestrating. They are driving. So I want this to be reflected in our org chart. And I thought, well, that's another fun idea. Yeah? If it works in that environment, beautiful. Yeah? Everybody appreciated that because he provided the context and he made it clear that he's not that important. He was a very, very strong, or he is a very strong and very good leader, but he didn't care whether he's on top of the org chart or not. Doesn't matter.
I love that. That makes me reflect like an orchestra. When you think of the conductor at the center, he's at the base, but the orchestra is the overarching architect of all the beauty and everything that they produce. And that sounds exactly like what you've just described. That truly is being vulnerable. Amazing.
Yeah. So what if, let's say you're mid transformation and for whatever reason, measurement, what you were originally measuring, the technology wasn't working anymore? Do you continue pushing through with the transformation, even though you cannot measure what you set out to measure in the beginning? Or do you put the brakes on and fix the reporting, the measurement piece first?
I think I know the answer.
It's a tough question for someone at SAP. The idea or to imagine that the reporting is broken and no longer working. I mean, yeah, it's how can this happen at SAP? Hard to imagine. Yeah. And now, on a more serious note, I believe if you're truly convinced that you're doing the right thing, you will find the arguments and you will find what you need to bring others on board and to move forward with the transformation. It should not be driven by a set of KPIs or a reporting tool or anything like that. If you're really, really serious about it, and you will be creative, you will innovate, and you will do something. It's not. I'm not running a business only on a reporting, because I am not running the business. The people are running the business, and sometimes that gets forgotten.
Well, the key word you said there was innovate. And I remember earlier you were talking about, look, we have to be smart enough to lead to say that if this isn't working, change. Let's change it up. Let's get us to the direction. How do we get to the end goal of where we want to be? And that is at the heart of innovation. So,
one of the questions that I want to ask is in relation to psychological safety and how you create that. But I've also got in my mind some research that came out earlier this year from the Sales Health Alliance about the fact that 70% of salespeople are suffering with their mental health and feeling highly stressed in the job. And so are the words mental health taboo in a large organization like yours? Do you come at it from a different angle, like well-being? How do you A, create that psychological safety, and B, in a sales environment, how do you consider protecting mental health?
So first, psychological safety is something that can be implemented and it can be lived in every team on every level. Again, this can be part of the culture. Okay, it is fine to say something in a closed environment and not get punished or not feel any consequences. It's actually, I encourage people to say the truth. It may stay among us, but you're allowed to say the truth, even if it's uncomfortable for me. But I can stand that. So you can do that on any level. Now, the health topic is getting more and more important. The number one problem are psychological issues that people have. The number two problem are problems with your back, because you're sitting all day long. And then there are a couple of other elements that are among the number 3, 4, and 5. So this cost the company a lot of money. And so from a financial perspective, it is a very important and growing topic. Now, from a mental health and from the perspective of the individual worker who wants to be successful in the job, everything needs to get out of the way. And health is something that we, by default, do not spend enough time and attention to. Now, this gets more and more important. So I ask every of my team members, what are you doing for your health? What are you doing to stop working? What are you doing during your vacation? Very simple things like that. If someone has some kind of mental or physical or health problem, stop immediately. This is top priority. There is no other priority. We cannot work, and we don't want to work with people who are not there and 100% fit and healthy. So this becomes more and more important, and I see initiatives all over the place to help people in a proactive way to address any potential health issue that may come up. And it starts with, something that I did 10 years ago. It was a social sabbatical. I was allowed to take a month off with 11 other colleagues, and I went to Bogota, Colombia for a project for 3 small startup organizations. And we ran projects that had nothing to do with SAP, with our technology, with our software. I was dealing with a startup company that was growing organic vegetable with farmers. Now, my life has changed throughout this 1 month. And what I saw there, also from a health aspect point of view, really changed my thinking. And I saw people in circumstances that you wouldn't believe. So what we take for granted sometimes needs this kind of opener to become aware how important aspects like health or mindfulness or psychological safety will become, and even more in the future.
Yeah.
And there are many, many other examples, and it's really a fun thing to see that people take it serious. And yeah, there's a reason for it.
Yeah, I think half the problem is the awareness. You were lucky enough to be made aware about the healthy effects of organic food, and for me personally, it wasn't until later on in my life when all of this education was available, and actually what you put into your body, what you eat, has a massive effect on the way that you feel and your mental state.
Yes, and this is exactly the topic. Yeah, if a trainer tells you, oh, you need to eat healthy food, you're listening and you say, yeah, but I'll do it my way anyway, and I don't really care. When you experience it over time, that's a completely different story. Yeah? So I do not want to be convinced by someone who says, oh, you need to live vegetarian. I'm not going to get convinced by any argument, but maybe throughout experience.
Trying yourself.
So we are doing these kind of experiential learning activities or programs or initiatives that focus on experiencing things, because at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. That's what we want to provide in sales. We want to provide a different experience for the customer. Now that may mean many different things. Yeah. So be open, innovate, and open up your horizon. And it's not about, these are the 100 things you have to do in sales to be successful. It's not about that.
No, so we won't expect nutrition as a key pillar in the next sales transformation.
A whole segment. And of course, I'm completely biased, obviously, with Scared So What. I'm constantly focusing on the personal side of individuals. And that's exactly what Rainer has just said. How to let people experience the scenarios and situations of life for themselves, how to personalize it and live through your own learnings and your own experiences. So, wow, it sounds like an amazing environment over at SAP. I hope that you have a visitor program and we all can come over.
Sure thing.
There you go.
What are some of the? I mean, you've covered a lot, Rainer. I mean, we're covering a lot, and it's great. Kind of the direction in which we're taking the conversation. But are there sort of any key takeaways that you've got for our listeners? I know Grant said you're not talking about tips and tricks. I don't necessarily mean tips and tricks, but are there any?
He's got one right here.
Yes.
Right here. He's got a massive takeaway.
Maybe you could both talk about your respective chapters, your contribution to the book. I'd love to hear that.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So my chapter is called Leadership in the Digital Future: A Model Moving Forward. And I thought I would write about digital technologies. And in the end, I did not write about digital technologies. I was writing about, disruption, communication, innovation, psychological safety, all these topics that we mentioned before. And the core element in the middle, and I have always this image in my head, is the trust theme. But I would rather call it how to engage with people. Yeah. How to engage with another person. Trust is one element, but I also mentioned lifelong learning. So I am so curious and I want to learn more and more every single day how I can change my engagement with people, maybe my wife, maybe my friends, maybe my coworkers, maybe my customer, whoever. what I can do to provide a different experience in my engagement with others. Trust certainly plays an important role, and you'll be surprised if you ask, the next person you talk to, or the next 5 people you ask them, well, what do you think about trust? What establishes trust? You will be amazed by the answers. Yeah? And some things you may have never heard of, and some things may inspire you, and that's exactly it. Get inspired to be inspiring for others. If you're convinced yourself, you have a much better position to convince someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that message is so important, which is exactly why Rainer's chapter is the very first chapter in the book. So we put that one absolutely front and center. So
are there any plans to create an audio version of the book?
I don't know if they will do that. We can definitely work with Routledge.
Yeah.
I know there'll be an ebook, a Kindle version will come out.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? Or something, or create a video, or do something completely different. Who knows? A blockbuster movie.
Yeah. With what are there 12 authors in the book? How many authors? Yeah.
12 altogether, yeah.
At least 12 characters in that movie.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting, right? But I love it because we all had a unifying theme. We worked together and we took courses with Dr. Christine Eastman on creative writing and literature and the importance of world global literature, of how we can weave that into our leadership styles. We all have these elements in common with the Sales Masters programs, Consalia Sales Business School, and with these writing courses as well, which is what brought us all together. And that's what brought Rainer and I together as well, too. And we have our own unique stories to tell. Just as Rainer has said, in making his chapter first, it was just such a prominent message that it needed to be first and foremost in the book. I'm not far behind him. I'm in chapter 3. So not too far, but you can guess it. My chapter was coaching salespeople through change and introducing the importance of change management. But we tell it in a little different story of a literature approach. I don't know if you've known Death of the Salesman, which is the famous book in the play. Willie Loman is the star in that play and book. And the title kind of gives it away what happens in real life. But I hypothesized what would happen if I could have a real life coaching situation with Willie Loman using Scared So What. Could there be a different outcome? And to answer that, you'd have to read the book. But so it is about sales, and our teas, right? And our other authors are just phenomenal at what they do. So you've got really good perspectives, and which is what it is, leadership perspectives from around the world. So I hope you can find it. It's by Routledge, Transformational Sales Leadership. And you can get it anywhere books are sold, Amazon as well too. So yeah, definitely take a look, try to get that book.
I was just having a look for it now. I found it on the Routledge website. There we go.
There it is.
Cool. I can pop the link in the chat.
Perfect.
I mean, what's really unique is that you get 12 different perspectives. And they're all based on practice and on your experience in your work in different companies, in different locations on this planet. So it's not another textbook theory, framework, model, whatever. It comes from real people, from real businesses, with an open mindset.
Yeah. We're just normal people. Some of them we've delved a little bit. I love this phrase that they call it. I had somebody the other day say, "Grant, could the training be a little bit less academic?" And I thought it couldn't be more opposite. It's actually pracademic. So yes, we've delved a little bit into academia, but we also have lived our whole lives doing the job, actually in sales business, leading sales entities around the world. Operating. So as Rainer rightfully says, we call it pracademics because we're practicing in our real work lives. So we bring our real world experiences to you. So it's not just something that's in university. This is a leading global business today.
Yeah. Look, we've got a couple of minutes left. Grant, I feel like it's I should give you an opportunity for you to tell us a little bit about Scared So What. You've touched on it a couple of times.
Sure, happy to. I'll always take a nice sales plug from a salesperson. Yeah, we love that. Scared So What is the world's first personal change model. So you think 100 years of organizational change management, and you wonder why so much change fails. It's because we don't focus on the individual. And there never has been a model bespoke for the way people think about change. And if you think of it yourselves, have either of you ever been taught in your lives how to manage personal change for yourself?
Not until I met you.
There you go. Well, that's usually the answer. And that's because the models didn't exist. So we've created the model. We've created an app. And our second generation app just launched last week, as a matter of fact. It's called Scared So What Pro, and that stands for Professional for Organizations. We've brought together a whole new viewpoint that we built with our customers and their viewpoints together. It's an app mobile-based. It's also web-based for people to use on their laptops. And then what's really, truly unique is we built the first ever digital insights so that the organization can see change management live as it happens. So as your people are learning how to manage personal change via mobile or desktop and managing it and taking quizzes and results and building their own action plans, you can see the anonymized data come to life in the account management system. So this is how we're revolutionizing organizational change and helping people to be more successful.
Nice. Is that a first, being able to actually manage how change is happening real time?
I'm biased and I say it is, but you know, people have tried, but this is what I've spent the last 7 years of my academia and practice building, working, putting into play and testing with our salespeople and people all over the world, even our B2B customers. We actively still roll this out to our customers so that they can have the benefit of learning how to manage change for themselves. And there's just so much literature on why change fails. And that's because, you fail to focus on the needs of the individual, which is everything Rainer's just said today. And that's why I get so happy, because here is an established senior leader who says the people are truly important.
Yeah. And now you have the method and the technology to operationalize it.
Exactly.
Operationalizing change. Nice. Okay. Good. All right. We are out of time. Thank you very much, Rainer. It was lovely to meet you. Thank you for sharing all of your insight.
Thank you, Rainer.
Thank you.
And as always, my co-host, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. It was lovely spending another episode with you. Now, I was going to say, hey, looking forward to episode 5, but I think we have a question mark around episode 5, don't we? We're not decided on the topic yet. Fully.
We are. We're still kind of tweaking that a little bit. So tune in, watch this space. But we've got definitely 2 more episodes. When you have another guest for episode 6, Sakis Tasudis. I believe you know him, don't you, Rainer?
Yes,
you know
absolutely. Yeah.
He's going to join us for our episode 6 on how do we know if we've done it? How do we know if we've transformed? And what's next? So that'll be an exciting episode. And if you like this, please let us know, because there's nothing saying we have to stop. If you want SalesTV and sales transformation to continue, if you want any of our guests like Rainer to come back and continue the discussions, let us know in the comments. If you want to be a guest on SalesTV and talk about sales transformation within your organization, be sure to just let us know in the comments, and we'd be happy to reach out to you.
All are welcome. Thank you. Well, enjoy the rest of your week and weekend. See you next time on SalesTV.